Mr. Blum? Mrs. Pepino?
Here.
Dr. Zuppert?
Here.
Mr. Drumpel? Mrs. Furman? Mr. Lamar?
Here.
Mr. Lucas? Mr. Matlock? Mr. McInerney?
Here.
Mr. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Rader?
Here.
And Mr. Smith?
Here.
We reached the point in our agenda for our first public participation, and I understand we have a presentation this evening.
We have two presentations, yeah. So, anybody from the public?
Let's do the presentations first, and then we'll do questions.
Okay, awesome. We're just gonna, go
I'm not
ahead.
going to take up too much of your time because I had nothing to do with it except for I run the building, so it's good for me. But this is just for people from Mrs. Suski's second grade class, and I just want to really quick just boast about her and the work they're doing. She's always doing something different, and Mr. Kruger can attest since he was there. They did a red carpet event this year where show swing the project, but just then they had red carpet, they had little mini Oscars, all the kids dressed up, and it basically entailed all of the attributes we love here at Belvidere. We were talking about community, obviously technology, and just all the great work that you do all year. So, it's all you.
All right, I'm actually not going to talk too much either. These guys are going to explain it to you. But I am Michelle Suzigan, and I'm teaching second grade this year at 3rd Street. One of our units in social studies to start the year was citizenship and community. And since we're one-to-one with iPads, they took a walking tour of Belvedere, took pictures, made a video, memorized speeches, presented the video, and they're going to tell you more about it right now.
My name is Karen Nicholson. My name is Brayden Snow. My name is We learn about citizenship and community and social studies. So this one is so much the work they do.
We will begin. So just in case you couldn't hear them, the process was, after learning about citizenship and communities that they define, we took a walking tour of town with their iPads. They each probably took 60 pictures of the town. Out of those pictures, they chose their favorite 20 or so, uploaded them from their iPads to their Google Drive, and the second graders did that all themselves, wrote and memorized speeches, recorded their speeches in front of a green screen, worked with the iSchool advocates to upload their green screen video and all their pictures into a wee video. And that's what we're going to show now. We're going to start with Kaylee's video first.
Because it is fun. Hello, I am Braden Snyder. I am a citizen of Belvidere. Living in our community makes me feel happy. You should visit Belvidere because it is nice. This is the library. It is good because it is quiet, it has interesting books. This is the theater. It's good because they have space there. This is a tropical bar. It is good because it has good food. Here are a few other awesome things we have in Belgium. Move to Belgium.
That's great.
Good job, Brittany. Next is Ansley's video.
Hi, my name is Lucy. I am a citizen of Belgium. Living in my community makes me feel happy. You should visit Belgium because it is a good town. This is Susan. It is good because it has food. This is the vehicle. It is good because it has delicious bread. Here are a few other things we have in Belgium. I hope you visit our too.
Good job, Ansley. And last we have Nick.
Hi, my name is Nicholas. I am a citizen of Belgium. Living in my community makes me feel proud. You should visit somewhere because it is fun, because it has lots of things. This is our class. It's great because it is fun and at recess it is more fun. This is the park. It's great because it's fun. Thinking out. Here are a few things. Other things we have in Belgium. I hope
Thank you very much. Great catch, guys. Do we need to vote on
No.
it? No, okay. Okay, any other, well, I'm sorry, questions from the public? Discussion? Correspondence?
I have one letter to the board. It is with deep regret that I must submit my resignation as a substitute teacher effective immediately. Since my election as Warren County School Board Vice President, the potential conflict between employer and employee has risen again. The easiest way to avoid any conflict is to resign. Please extend a thank you to the administration, teachers, staff, and students who made working at Belvidere over the last 20 years or so a great pleasure. Very truly yours, George W.
Next slide. That's it. Okay. Superintendent's report.
In a second, I'm going to introduce Anthony Odito. I just want to comment, though, for Mrs. Susigan's class. I think they're still floating around. I'm impressed that Mrs. Susigan actually was able to pick 4 videos to show because they were all outstanding. It was a great morning. And I think I actually mentioned at the last meeting because it was the day before Veterans Day, right? It was right before Teachers Convention weekend. Seems like, doesn't seem that long ago, but it was. They were just great, and one after another was just awesome. I'm just so proud of the kids, and I think even just standing in front of the green screen and making that presentation it's not easy. And most of the kids did it without any level of script. They had it all memorized, and they just did an outstanding job. So I'm glad you're able to share that with us tonight, because I think it was really good. And you're the first person to use the ViewSonic, our new ViewSonic board in public. We just got these in weeks ago, and we just got training on them on Tuesday. So again, thank you, and the kids, you guys did an awesome job. So thanks so much, and for the parents, thank you for coming out.
Nicely
we really
done.
Appreciate it.
Very nicely done.
And now we can introduce the real exciting part of the evening, is Anthony's going to go over the audit report of our financials.
It's going to be a hard act to follow. Let's talk about some boring numbers here. I handed out a presentation.
You have a green screen presentation, right?
I hope to use the ViewSonic next year. Be prepared, more prepared. I'm sorry.
Man, that's what you got.
Stand it up here. We're going to go over this presentation. It's graphical in nature. It's at a very high level. We'll talk about numbers and finances of the school district, and then we'll talk about the audit afterwards. So with that, we'll just hop into the presentation. So we'll go to the first page here. This is your governmental expenditures for fiscal 17 in a pie chart. And this includes all of your funds except for cafeteria. That's an enterprise fund. So this is all governmental funds. Your general fund, which your tax rate is computed on. Your special revenue funds, where you spend all your grants. Those are your main governmental funds. If you had debt, you'd have a debt service fund. If you had large capital projects, you might have a capital projects fund that would also fit into there. So if you could just go around the chart, instruction on the left-hand side, the big red piece of pie, that's direct classroom salaries and direct classroom materials and supplies. It does not include benefits. If you look at the very top of the chart, at the 12 o'clock, unallocated benefits, that's where all your benefits lie. And so this pie chart represents the New Jersey chart of accounts and how New Jersey wants school districts to classify their expenditures, and it follows along with your budget also. So if you take those 2 slices of pie, you're well over 50%. But those percentages are a little low because if you take a look down at the very bottom, at about 5 o'clock, there's a thing called on behalf benefits. Now these are benefits that the state pays for you. You don't actually cut a check. These are teachers' pension, teachers' post-retirement health benefits, and the teachers' Social Security match. Those are taken care of by the state. But in governmental accounting, you have to show them as an expenditure, even though you don't pay for them. You show the same dollar amount as a revenue, so they offset each other. There's no impact to your fund balance. But that's why that is in here. So that kind of skews the percentages down a little bit. Once we pull that out, your instruction costs are well into the 60-some% tile. And then right next to that, down at the very bottom, special revenue. We talked about that a little bit. That's your grants. IDEA, No Child Left Behind. You can see you don't get much help by the feds here in Belvidere. Next page is your expenditures again, but over a 5-year time frame. So the black line there is your actual run rate. Those are your actual expenditures. And they exclude any capital items because they could fluctuate from year to year. You might not have any one year and then it might bump up. And it excludes those on behalf benefits that I talked about before. So this is basically the money that you spend year in and year out reoccurring. So you can see the blue line there is your 2013 expenditures adjusted for inflation at a 2% inflation rate, compounded annually. So it's a straight line up. In 2017, you can see you're at 11,785,000. 2% number is higher than that, 12,303,000. So you're well under the 2% spending growth rate. You're doing a great job at containing costs. We throw another line on here, that red triangle line. Basically what that is that your per pupil cost in 2013 multiplied by the number of pupils that you had at the end of any given year. And adjusted for a 2% rate. So that kind of shows your enrollment is declining slightly. Not as great as the rest of Warren County, but I don't know, you might see that as some of the smaller schools, White and Hope, Harmony, as they come up through your ranks in the next few years, you might see more of a decline. So we're seeing declines in enrollment throughout the county. Not just Warren County, it's Sussex County, Hunterdon County, it's declining everywhere. Page 3, this shows your revenue, where you get your money to fund those expenditures I just talked about. So that big red line there, that's your tuition. So you charge White, Hope, and Harmony to send their kids here. And then the green bar there is the Belvidere tax rate. Theoretically, that's for the kids from Belvidere that come through. And then there's that orange triangle is your state aid, and you can see that's relatively flat. That's basically been frozen for almost 10 years. There's a little bit of increase once in a while. You might get extraordinary aid. I don't think you've received that in the last couple of years, but you're living with the flat. And then very down at the bottom there's that $236,000 of federal grant money. Page 4, just as an anecdotal graph to throw in there, property tax rates for the last 5 years. You're the red portion on the bottom, and then the town and the county. That's for 2016, which is your fiscal 17 tax levy. And page 5 will show your excess surplus. Now, as you know, you're limited to having 2% of your expenditures or $250,000 in surplus. That's unreserved, unencumbered, just free money. You're capped here in Belvidere at 250. So we take a look at this chart, and your actual is in the maroon color there. The green is the maximum allowed. You're just slightly under it every year. So man, you do a good job. Coming right in under it. But as you remember, every June you pass a resolution that says, any unspent line items or extra revenue that we have, we, as the board, can direct it into capital reserve, maintenance reserve. There's other reserves out there, but those are the two that you do. So that's what you do. I think you put 250 into maintenance and 100 into capital. And if you didn't do that, that would get caught up in this excess surplus calculation. If you did have excess, that they call it going back to the taxpayers. That money goes back into the budget as a revenue source 2 years down the road. Theoretically, if you have more money in 1 year called excess surplus that you didn't have the following year, then you have extra revenue. What are you supposed to do? Lower revenue somewhere else. That's usually the tax rate. That's why they call it giving it back to the taxpayers. You lower that levy so they can balance, your budget is balanced. So for many years, you've been managing that at the 250 level. And that 250 is meant to give you working capital throughout the year to make your payrolls and pay your vendors. Because you don't receive your levy all at once at the beginning of the year. And then the last page, page 6, talk about all of your fund balance components. So your total fund balance at June 30th, 2017 was $1,692,000. And off to the left there, at about 9, 10 o'clock, is that almost $250,000 we just talked about, your unreserved portion. And then we go clockwise up at the top, $300,000 is what you, as the board, kicked into your fiscal 18 budget as a revenue in order to balance that budget. So that needs to be reserved for. And then maintenance reserve off to the right, 575, and capital right below it. We talked about that. You're using that money every year and then replenishing it with that June resolution. And so the 100 grand into capital reserve, you're still down to 29 because you've been using it throughout the year. Even after your budget's done, there's other capital projects that come up. So you can see you're not hoarding money. Capital reserve is almost non-existent. And then reserve for encumbrances. Encumbrance is a fancy governmental term for open purchase orders. These are your orders at the end of June that you haven't received goods or services for yet, but you have to pay for them July, August, September, so you need to reserve money aside to pay for them. You're not going to charge those off to your fiscal 18 budget because they're fiscal 17 expenditures. So any questions so far on the finances of the district? I think you're in good financial position. You're not eating into your unreserved. You're able to manage your budget every year by putting money into your budget. So I think you're doing great there. The audit went great this year, and it has for the last number of years. I have to congratulate Shelley. She does an excellent job. We don't have any recommendations on the audit side, financial or otherwise. And she's doing an excellent job, and I really appreciate that. She gets everything ready for us, has everything laid out. We're able to get things done in a timely, efficient manner in our audit planning for the account. We know we're going to get a good audit with Shelley from an organization standpoint, so we're able to have the planning process go pretty well. And I know she's doing Harmony also, which takes a toll on BAs when their time is split. You usually see things suffer in both of the districts, but not with Shelley. I mean, and in Harmony, if you guys remember a couple years ago, they've had some issues. We've had many audit recommendations and bidding problems and internal control problems. And she came in and in 1 year took care of it. So she does a great job both here and at Harmony. So I appreciate that. Any other questions for me?
Actually, I had one. So on page 1, you had mentioned the in benefit, on behalf of benefit, which is basically the pension obligation. So that's the actual. That's not what the obligation is. Is it based on actual dollars? That
on behalf benefits of $1,000,005. That's the contribution that the state made.
Because the pension fund has been underfunded for a long time. So
TPAF is underfunded by $79 billion. So, and you're
79 billion.
Yeah. And if you look in your CAFR, and you can find that CAFR online, NJDOE CAFR, you can look up every school district. In the notes to the financial, you'll see a pension note, and then you see the 79 billion and your share of that. You don't have an obligation to pay for that. The state's on the hook for that. But in your financials, you do show on the very first balance sheet, the A1, an obligation for PERS, because you do make that payment yourself. The state doesn't make it for you. And you'll see a liability on your balance sheet for the net pension liability. That's underfunded to a lesser degree. I believe the number's in the 20 billions, but still, big number.
It is a big number.
Yeah, I don't know if the state will ever dig itself out of
I mean,
that.
the entire state budget is what, about 34 billion for the
Yeah.
entire, on an annual basis for the entire, to cover the cost of business for the entire, all of government. So you're talking about a pension a liability that's 2.5 times
Right.
what the state's annual budget is.
That's right. And that only includes the pension. The post-health care benefits are a separate issue, and that's coming up this year. There's a new GASB 75, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, that says we have to do the same thing with these other benefits out there, post-retirement benefits. So there'll be and there's no money being put away for that anyway. So that's going to be even a bigger number. It's probably in the hundreds of billions.
Now you're scaring us.
Yeah, so.
Um,
State made a lot of promises.
Yeah, I have one other question. It's a total non sequitur to the first. Chart of accounts. So is that, when was the last time that was updated for public schools? Is that pretty fairly current, or?
No, I don't think that's been updated for, well, sometimes they add some new accounts, but the main structure hasn't been updated for 20 some years. It's still accounted for it the same way.
Because Department of Education has just recently updated it for private schools this past July.
Okay. Yeah, they add accounts, or they ever delete them, and we see new accounts. They do allow you to allocate your benefits if you want to. You guys don't do it here in Belvidere, but there are some schools that allocate benefits back to each department. There's accounts set up for that. But yeah, it's relatively
We're too small for that. There would be no benefit to doing that. Yeah. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you
Thanks,
very much.
Anthony. Appreciate it.
Oh, Shelley, is this something that we can get out to the other board members then who aren't here? Do you have extra copies? And we should probably post this today, right? Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
So let's post this to our
If you want
website.
to PDF.
Yes,
That'd be
yes, that would be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving on.
All right, so I'll finish my report now. Thanks to Anthony. We hadn't done the audit. We haven't had a public audit report in quite a few years. So I thought it was good. Shelley and I talked back in the summer when Anthony was he did both schools almost consecutively. Just have him come out and just kind of refresh. I think it's good for everyone to hear. Certainly, I think Shelley does an outstanding job, as I know many of you do as well. But it's an outside agency coming in who Anthony specializes in that. The compliments, are well deserved, and I think it's nice to hear from someone else.
Well earned.
Yeah. So I do appreciate Anthony coming out. I did mention before our new ViewSonic. It's probably the most state-of-the-art thing we have in the building right now. Probably the best way to describe it is a smart board on steroids. We were in the training yesterday. Kara Lee, who's had the smart, really been playing around with it for a couple of weeks, must have said wow about 75 times of what the capabilities were. So we're really excited to get him into the classroom. We have a couple of them that are on mobile carts like this, and then a couple are going to be mounted into the classroom. Michelle Suskin actually is getting one. It might actually be up in her room. So it's a relatively expensive piece of technology, but we love what the capabilities are, and we'll be looking to add more as we move forward. Probably the one thing worth talking about most tonight is I went to the regionalization meeting. The school board sponsored discussion on regionalization at Sparta High School last Wednesday. I'll try not to over-talk it, and if I'm getting a little long, feel free to give me the old gong, like the old gong show. The meeting was organized by school boards after a politician in Sussex County had proposed a county-wide regional school district. So consolidating all 35 school districts that exist in Sussex County. So school boards put together a panel of 5 gentlemen, one who is a self-proclaimed school board's lobbyist, the executive director of the NJASA, which is the Superintendent's Association, John Ropars from the NJEA, who's been UNICEF rep for quite a few years in this area, and then I'm missing one person. Oh, Dave Hespy, former commissioner, and then the new superintendent in South Hunterdon, which is the most recent regionalization that has occurred. And the conversation stemmed from the concept of that one county regional, and then really focus a little bit more on more shared services and more local regionalization. And it's the way that the biggest hurdle right now is with the county-wide one is that the way the statute reads is you need every municipality within the county to agree to it. So again, using Sussex County as the example, there's 35. If the vote is 34-1, it doesn't go. And then the other part which was brought up was wherever in that county, and I think the most recent rebuilding of a school was Sparta High School, which actually when I was there, everybody else assumes a piece of that debt. So for us, it would be with Phillipsburg, if we were going to regionalize into one, we'd have the Belvidere taxpayers would wind up having to cut into that. So that got a lot of sort of negativity to it. Although Dave Hespy was, I think, and he was, again, served 2 terms as commissioner, he was pretty much in the middle, saying, yes, there's some immediate challenges, but 10, 15, 20 years down the road, it could be sustainable and likely you'd see decreased taxes for all of the taxpayers. Keyword was likely. You can't. There's no crystal ball to be sure, and who knows how it affects what it looks like. The part I was interested in was the South Hunterdon Regional, because they're again smaller groups. And it was interesting because the superintendent that was there, he wasn't there for the voting part of it, and he came in right as the voting took place. So everything was pretty much in motion at that point. He actually said he was surprised that Stockton, which is the smallest of the group, actually voted for it. Everybody thought it was going to go down. Their goal was not to save taxpayers money. And in fact, of the 3 districts, one of the districts actually picked up a bigger tax burden. But they felt educationally it was more sound to have, I think they said that the Stockton school had 40 total students, and you're talking about classes of 5, and getting them into a regional was a bigger benefit to them. So that was pretty interesting, his conversation. And he said there was some hurdles along the way, one of which is the teacher's contract. And the way John Ropars explained it was it's the grouping, the association that has the most members contract is the one that everyone has to live under. Not necessarily the richest contract or the highest paying contract. It's whoever has the most members. However, no one can go backwards. So the Belvidere teachers, for example, had to live under the White Township, because it'd probably be close. And let's say somebody was on step 10 and their step 10 was $2,000 lower, they still stay at that higher salary. So the grandfather.
Okay.
So the gentleman from Southern said that was one of the bigger challenges. And then getting everybody with the same textbooks, and then getting everybody with the same, making sure they're all in the same curriculum. Said that posed a lot of challenges along the way. They're into their 3rd year. They're now negotiating the first contract of the regional, and he said, so now it's smoothed itself out. But again, it wasn't a complete tax savings for everybody. Stockton wound up, and apparently willingly paid the extra tax burden. So it was a good conversation. I don't know that school boards took a particular stand either way on it. It was more of an informational process. It does sound like there's a lot of challenges to a huge regionalization. I think the message was where you can consolidate within, it doesn't have to even be within a cluster. It could be local, say when Harmony and Peterborough has something or something to that effect. That should be explored really too, because that could have just as much of a tax savings or money savings as if you went to a huge regional. So I think I kind of hit all the major points of that. So, but it was an interesting conversation, and then of course there was some community members who got up, and there was a couple of gentlemen who were pushing it, from a tax point of view, without solid facts. So it was an interesting conversation. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I can probably answer more in detail. It was pretty educational.
There was materials distributed for you?
There was very little materials distributed. It was
Okay.
more of the agenda, and then one gentleman who just did a handout on declining enrollment of Sussex County.
Oh, that's
So
not applicable to us.
not applicable to us.
No.
Not applicable to us. But I'm sure I can get anything you need from, or any of us can get from school boards, the material.
Okay.
Okay. With that, got a letter from the superintendent of Blairstown, which I want to share with everybody that's here, which is the Blairstown Board of Ed actually passed a resolution that they are completely against the concept of a countywide regionalization. So I'm just passing it along because it was asked that they do that.
Preemptive on their part?
I guess it's preemptive on their part. So we know that if the concept comes up in Warren County, we've already got the one no vote, so,
Yeah.
so I guess it won't come up.
I mean, I think to think about regionalization, to try to do it on a countywide basis seems awful ambitious. You know, and if you're trying to achieve an objective of actually doing something, you should start out with the premise that what you're trying to achieve is actually attainable.
Right.
You know, so
I agree with
that,
you.
so that means a few districts maybe banding together, but when you think about 35, it just seems it's too many. It's too ripe for somebody to say no.
Yeah, I agree with that. Right? And even within the meeting, there was a couple of residents from different townships that asked the question in a couple different ways about, so we're assuming the debt of the Spark High School. And there's no sugarcoating. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
So that turned people off right away.
Chris, there's a page missing,
Is there?
at least in my version. It's sort of
I didn't do it the way I wanted. I tried to do the two-side cover. I will get you that other page. I apologize. It's just
Probably the signature page.
the signature page.
Oh,
I apologize for that. I thought I copied two-page to two-page. I get to the signature page. Okay.
I think we're good.
I didn't check that either.
yeah. You can certify.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah,
Endorsed by
that's all.
the-
It's my fault. In your packet this week, everybody received a copy of the new chief school administrator evaluation process, just so you can kind of get a sense of how it's changed since the one you just worked on and the ones you've done in the past. This is into effect for the next school year. We have the option to do it this year. I talked with Sean about, I think it's just better for the board to get into it this year. It's a little bit more extensive than the previous one, but I think there's a lot more to it, and I think, in my opinion, and I think you kind of agree when we talk about a much more fair evaluation of the job rather than focusing on 3 goals. You know, it's an overall.
It's more comprehensive.
More comprehensive. So if you have that and get a chance to take a look at it, feel free, and then as we move forward, it also has some pretty good timelines in there too, to make sure that we're on the right page with that. We are in the middle of concert season, to kind of go into a fun direction. We had the high school instrumental concert last Thursday. This Thursday, tomorrow night, we have the high school choral concert. It's one of the highlights of the year. Mr. AP has done an outstanding job with the chorus, so if you have a free night, feel free to come on down. And then next Thursday, we have the joint 3rd Street and Oxford Street concert. 5:30 starts Oxford Street, and I think 6:30 or 7 is Oxford Street follows right after. So feel free to come out and enjoy some quality Christmas music.
What time is that concert tomorrow night?
It's at 7. It's at 7.
There it is, right on the homepage.
There you go. See? Let's see. Next thing, if I sent out the email that I'm looking for volunteers for the strategic planning committee. Have one from the board so far. Also on the main page of the high school, or actually the district website, is a form out to the community members to try to get some community involvement in this. I'm looking to, by the middle of January, get the process going. I'll share more with the board with that in the early part of January, just to get things going. So if you have any community members that are interested, direct them right to the webpage. The principals did a nice job of using their social media pages to get some of that information out, so we appreciate that. So we are looking for volunteers. We're looking for some association members, teachers, all kinds of staff. So
All types of stakeholders.
all kinds of stakeholders. So if anybody has any questions, they can certainly direct them towards me. Okay? The hope is that after this meeting, we will be a paperless board. So if you desire to get the packet, let me know. We will still get you a physical copy of it. If not, everything will be coming to you through your email. So please, if you have a need for the paper, let us know. We'll get that out to you. Okay. Sean has asked in the past about the community service requirements and philosophy on our new freshman seminar course, and then how that's going to move out to senior year. So we're going to send these around. This is what we're working off of. And so if you have any questions on that, please let me know. But this was developed by Ms. Lazaro with Ms. Gayton and Ms. Krasinski on what works and what does not work. And then my last thing, is I feel like I'm rambling on tonight for some reason. The next board meeting, we're going to have our Green Dot group come in and do a presentation. They did almost something similar. I don't know if I shared it with had meant to share was in somebody's board report. Working with the community center and helping the town with the rebuilding of the community center. Our Green Dot students spent some time down there recently, and they did an awesome job. So they're going to come show their video and talk about what they're doing. So looking forward to seeing that.
That's terrific. That's really good.
So other than that, everybody have safe and happy holidays, and we'll see everybody back in January.
The only question I have is, as Chris mentioned, Chris and I talked about using the new evaluation format. I just want to make sure that there's no strong objection on the part of anybody on the board about, as we're in the middle of his evaluation process, but we would be transitioning this current year. As Chris mentioned, it's going to be required for next year. I think it makes perfect sense for us to go ahead and launch into this now. And I agree with Chris in that it's a fairer way and a more comprehensive methodology for evaluating a CSA. So is everyone okay with that? Good. Very good. Thanks, Chris. Personnel items 1 through 6. Can we get a motion in a second?
We do have a name
Second.
for number 1, 2. I'm sorry. Just all in favor.
That's okay. Don was the second.
Yeah, it's- Brian, you just want to say the name of our nurse candidate?
Christine Zarelli,
Spell last name, please.
Carrelli.
Christine. Thank you.
She's going to start at step 3.
How hard was it to recruit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very difficult.
Yeah. It's getting harder.
I had 2 very good candidates, one already had a position, so they're obviously for some reason than the other one. This one's really, really good. And Sue Marsh, I had Sue Marsh on and pulled it all out because they're going to know more better than I do. Did a great job helping with the interview process. I think we got it there.
Good. Very good. Thank you, Brian.
Starting when?
Probably at the first year, she was waiting to see if she had approved, she wouldn't let her go, no. So, is it, in your second, Kennedy work?
So with the plan with her would then for her to go on to get her school nurse certification?
Yes, she's already taking courses for this, she's never got a chance to finish.
So that was my next question is what's the anticipated timeline?
We started, I know she's about halfway through, so once we get everything figured out, we're gonna iron out how many she's gonna do, I wouldn't predict it in 2 years. And I think that the longer end, because I know she's helping.
Can you, that's fine, but just when you have an opportunity, once she gets on board, let's just dial that in a little bit more to get a specific, an anticipated date.
Sure, yeah, it's not part of her, she works 14 hours just for
I beg your pardon?
She's working 12, 14 hours just for hospital.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to just work everything out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So once she gets on board, it was just dial it in. Okay, good. Any other questions on 1 through 6?
The question,
Done.
number 5, Director of Cluster Curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Is that cluster-wide, meaning Hope Harmony White Belvidere cluster?
Yeah.
And that would be one of the districts would host that position?
Yeah, so traditionally, I'll say traditionally, so as long as I've been in Belvidere, so 8 years, Hope actually hosted that position. And then with the transition that they've had over the last couple of years with different principals in and out, this year they actually didn't have a person in place. So in fact, Sylvia did it before she left. And then the one thing we realized, we actually didn't have a job description for it. And what we're going to do is once this job description is approved, we're going to send it out, ask for applications throughout all 4 clusters, and then Mike and I will interview, come up with a candidate, and hopefully that person will stay in that position for a while. So it's existed, but never on paper. How's that sound?
Position you have to get approved by 4 different boards.
Correct.
Any other questions 1 through 6? Roll call.
Mrs. Lupino?
Yes.
Dr. Zeppel?
Yes.
Mr. LaBarre?
Yes.
Mr. McInerney?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Grader?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
On education, items 7 through 9, can we get a motion in a second? Discussion.
I just want to comment that I did have one board member who's not here tonight reach out to me just asking clarification as to why we're sending, I think it's 10 staff members through the Google 2 boot camp, and then a few folks to Texpo. I think when we look at the Google, the second round of Google training, it's just something we believe in as a district. The fact that we have 10 teachers that are prepared or at least going to go to the boot camp that have passed through the first phase of the Google training is outstanding. And when I talked to Chris Carabinas about it, it's just really helping to push the district forward when it comes to technology and the use of Google, which we certainly have taken on. So I'm certainly encouraged. I'm glad that we have this many staff members that are interested in going and continuing on, and then we'll also reimburse them for the assessment to become certified.
Is that a no school day? The 15th?
No, we have school that day, right? That's a Monday,
So
right?
we have a lot of substitutes then for that day?
Yeah, we do. We have plenty of substitutes. Yeah. We'll put all the kids in it. We'll have a big.
That was my only. I assumed when I saw
Yeah.
it that maybe it was a non-school day. But
No, so it is. And then with Texpo, we have Jess McKinney is also going. So we have 5 folks going down to 6 folks going down to Texpo. Oh, she's on there. Okay. Brian, Carolee, and Amy Belay are going to be working with the eSparks group on a presentation down there. I think, again, anytime we get the Belvidere brand name out, doing something like that, we really appreciate it. And then Jess is just interested as far as the technology she can use in her position as assistant principal. And obviously, Eric, I think it just makes a lot of sense for him to be at any tech conference that we have. So just to kind of clarify that, because that was a question that was raised.
okay, thank you. Well, I'm really glad we're pushing the Google School. I mean, I think we've made a lot of progress with that in a relatively short period of time.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? On business 10 through 15, can we get a motion in a second? Discussion? No discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Continuing business. Do we need to talk about the election?
If there's any continuing questions, certainly, but yeah, we need to decide the organization meeting date.
Yeah, I was actually going to do that in no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I can just say about the election process is the candidate who there's a conflict with, without saying too much, I personally sat down with her, as well as she received her letter from our attorneys, as we discussed in executive at the last meeting.
Okay.
So, and she completely understands the position
Good.
that the board is in.
So does she, the only thing I'm a little confused about is, does it require a resignation?
It does.
It actually
Yes.
requires an actual resignation?
It does.
Okay. So that'll be forthcoming, I assume?
Correct.
Okay. Any other continuing business? New
For this, none of them can be involved.
in the head?
No, I'm sorry, in the evaluation.
Yeah, we're
So we're going to worry about people leaving. We're going to resolve the real meeting now.
Yeah, we could, I was just gonna do it. Okay, so new business, one of the things we have to talk about is our January reorganization meeting. We were originally, we are currently scheduled to meet on the 3rd or the 4th? Third. Chris has a conflict. So then we talked about, I believe it was I thought it was the 8th. The 8th is a possibility. Don then has a conflict. He's traveling out of state for business on that day. So obviously we want to try to pick a date where we have as many that's is optimal for everybody on the board and for our superintendent. So and then you mentioned the possibility maybe of flipping the meetings. I
Yeah,
don't know.
we can possibly, because right now we have the Harmony meeting scheduled for the 4th, but maybe we could flip the Harmony to the 8th, because that is a Monday, which is our normal meeting night.
Yeah,
So this is
if
the,
that works better, can people can attend.
With the
on
4th, how is the folks' availability for January 4th for our
it's a
reorganization?
Thursday.
Let me just check real quick too.
It's your work day.
Hold on just a second, please.
Yeah, I'm okay with
Yeah,
that.
right. can go from the same ad too.
I'm good. For January 4th?
So January 4th at 7.
Yeah. Good for everyone? Okay, good. The other thing we need to talk about is I was contacted by the association about starting for negotiations to begin to meet. Did you get my email on this? I have a,
Yeah, but 19th?
yeah, okay. So, I don't know, the 19th seems kind of, it's like right up against the holidays. I had said to Chris Coyle that might be beneficial for the association to give us some dates in January, so we can then get the committee together. So, Chris, you want to talk to Chris directly, Don, as chair? Okay, all right, so Don's going to contact Chris, or if Chris can contact Don, and we'll just go from there. And then if anyone, I think right now on negotiations, it's Don as chair, Bob Blum, and Glenn. But I don't know if there's any other board members that are interested. They don't have
It's a lot of fun. It
but
really is.
Yes. I'm working it here. Don brings food.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna eat like kings.
It's catered, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But all kidding aside, it would be good to, if possible, to have at least one more board member, I think, on negotiations.
Right,
I
it's-
think I can be now.
I mean, it's,
I might have a conflict
hopefully
before,
not,
but I
but
think
it's usually a long process, and you get times where someone, Bob gets kind of.
Tax season.
The tax season, it's hard for him to make some of the meetings, so.
Right.
The more, it'd be nice to have an extra.
Michelle,
person.
you're good. Thank you. Okay. Done. Okay. Also, we have. Actually, we're going to have to. Maybe we need to do a two-part exec session. We have a HIB to discuss an executive. We also have Chris's evaluation to discuss an executive. Tad, I know you're conflicted from the evaluation piece, but you should stay for the HIB part. So do we want to do two
Sure.
separate executive sessions?
I can go home too.
Will we be?
After the hit?
We will have action after the hit.
Yes.
Not action, approval after the hit,
Okay.
or recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Do we have enough bodies here to do the evaluation? Is it something that can wait, or does it have to be tonight?
I actually,
Because we don't have a full complement
yeah, I talked to Chris about that too, but
Who's missing that? It's not conflicted. Bob?
Bob, Kyle, but Kyle's been missing obviously. Glenn,
Okay.
Deb's fine. She could participate in the CSA. She does. No, she can't. I'm sorry. She's conflicted.
And John.
So I had that conversation with Chris, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Chris. My sense was like we've already been pretty delayed with our process. Part of the delay also was with, and unfortunately, we still couldn't work it out. Michelle was having a hard time getting access to the electronic version to despite your efforts, which were
Yeah, Glenn and I both.
considerable, and Glenn as well. But then we were in a situation where I wanted to, Kathy Huala from school boards, to compile the data, because what happens is at the end of the month, school boards basically wipes the slate clean. So I didn't want us to lose the data of everybody who had participated. So I think the thought process, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, is just to, at this point, press ahead. It will be a two-part discussion, just so folks know. So in tonight's discussion, we're going to talk about part 1 and part 2 of the evaluative process. I'll take notes on that discussion, and then I'll go and write a summary, and then we'll meet again in an executive session with Chris to go over that summary. So there will be a second part of the discussion, and hopefully, maybe at that point, better attended by board members. Okay. So we're going to do. Well, is there any other new business before I go on? No. All right. So we'll do the executive session on the HIB. We'll reconvene, take whatever requisite action we need to take. Then we're going to go back into executive session for the evaluation. Can we have a motion to go into executive session?
Second.
This is on the HIP. It is hereby resolved, the board will now go into private session to discuss an HIB matter. Any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential will be made public as soon as practicable. Minutes of the private session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. The board will reconvene in public session at the conclusion of the closed session. Oh, thank you. I'm the blind. Oh, I think you should, well, it's your call, it's up to you. I think you should stay, but.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we're reconvened. Can we get a motion and a second on the HIB findings?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, and so to approve the October and November 2017 HIB findings. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're going to jump around a little bit. We're going to do our next public participation, and then we're going to have, then we're going to go back into executive session. We will not be taking action on the second executive session. So that being said, are there any questions from the public this evening?
I have a question. I should mention it in the beginning.
That's okay.
I just want to say thank you that the Board of Education meeting was posted on the electronic billboard.
Yep.
And I think that's, I know I drive by to see the temperatures and I saw it there.
Yep.
So thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime. Yep.
Thanks for saying that. Any other questions from the public this evening? Okay. Okay, so we also have an executive session to do the CSA evaluation. Do we have a motion and a second to go in executive?
Motion.
Second.
It is hereby resolved, the board will now go into private session to discuss the CSA evaluation. Any discussion held by the board which not remain confidential will be made public as soon as practicable. Minutes of the private session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. The board will reconvene in public session at the conclusion of the closed session. We will not be taking action. Okay.